The slap echoed through the marble lobby like a gunshot, sharp enough to freeze conversations and turn heads, and in that instant Marcus Hale understood that whatever he thought this trip was about, it had just become something else entirely. He stood there stunned, one hand still clutching his phone, the other slowly rising to his cheek where the sting bloomed hot and humiliating. His 5-year-old daughter Lily was beside him, her small fingers wrapped around his sleeve, her eyes wide and confused. Across from him stood a woman in a tailored blazer with a hotel badge pinned proudly to her chest, her jaw tight, her eyes blazing with a certainty that she was in the right. Around them, guests and staff hovered in an uneasy semicircle, curiosity wrestling with discomfort. Marcus felt every gaze like a weight, pressing down on the years he had spent holding himself together. Marcus had arrived at the hotel exhausted but hopeful. It was supposed to be a simple overnight stay, a break from long drives and even longer nights. Since his wife's passing 2 years earlier, life had become a constant balancing act of work, parenting, grief, and pretending he wasn't always one bad moment away from falling apart. He had booked the hotel under his name, paid in advance, and walked in with Lily half asleep on his shoulder, dreaming of nothing more than a warm bed and a quiet night. The trouble had started at the front desk. The clerk, a young man with tired eyes, frowned at the screen and asked Marcus to wait. Minutes passed. Lily shifted, restless, and Marcus tried to soothe her with whispers and promises of cartoons in the morning. Finally, the clerk said there was an issue with the reservation. According to the system, the room had been reassigned. Marcus explained calmly that he had confirmation emails, receipts, everything. The clerk nodded, apologized, and called for the manager. That manager was Claire Donovan. She walked over briskly, her heels clicking with authority, her expression already hardened as if she had decided the outcome before hearing the story. Marcus repeated himself, still polite, still patient. Claire barely glanced at his phone when he tried to show her proof. She said the hotel was fully booked, that mistakes happened, and that he would have to find accommodations elsewhere. Marcus asked, quietly, what he was supposed to do at nearly midnight with a child. Something in his tone, tired but firm, seemed to irritate her. She accused him of trying to scam a free room. The word stung worse than the slap that would follow. Marcus felt his chest tighten, but he kept his voice steady, telling her that he was just a father trying to get his daughter to bed. When he insisted on speaking to someone higher up, Claire's face flushed with anger. She stepped closer, invading his space, and before Marcus could even process what was happening, her hand came up and struck his face. Silence fell heavy and absolute. Lily gasped and began to cry, burying her face into Marcus's side. The clerk looked horrified. A couple near the elevators whispered urgently. Claire's own confidence flickered for a split second, then she straightened and snapped that Marcus was being disruptive and needed to leave immediately. She gestured to security, who hesitated, unsure. Marcus didn't shout. He didn't retaliate. He knelt instead, wrapping his arms around Lily, murmuring reassurances through the storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm him. Inside, anger roared, but so did something colder and steadier. He had learned, through loss and responsibility, that reactions mattered. He stood up slowly, met Claire's eyes, and said, "I want this incident documented." Now, she scoffed, but a few staff members exchanged glances. One of them, a housekeeper who had stopped nearby, pulled out her phone and quietly admitted she had recorded everything. Another guest stepped forward and said he'd seen the whole thing and was willing to make a statement. The atmosphere shifted. Claire's certainty cracked, replaced by irritation edged with something like unease. Marcus took Lily to a nearby couch and sat with her while the clerk nervously called corporate support. He gave his name, his reservation number, and calmly described what had happened. He did not embellish. He did not beg. He simply told the truth, his voice steady despite the ache in his cheek and the deeper ache in his chest. Lily eventually calmed, falling asleep against him, her trust a quiet anchor. What no one in that lobby knew was that Marcus Hale wasn't just any tired traveler. Years before, he had founded a hospitality investment firm after working his way up from night auditor to regional operations director. He had sold his stake publicly but remained a silent partner in several hotel chains, including the one they were standing in. He rarely used that fact, preferring anonymity, preferring to be judged on his actions rather than his name. Tonight, though, anonymity had cost him dignity. About 9 minutes after the slap, Claire's phone rang. She answered with a clipped greeting, then went very still. Color drained from her face as the voice on the other end spoke. She glanced at Marcus, then away, her posture shrinking with every passing second. When she hung up, the lobby felt like it was holding its breath. Moments later, security was instructed to escort Claire, not Marcus, to the back office. Corporate representatives appeared on a video call at the front desk, apologizing profusely and asking Marcus if he was safe, if his child was okay. Staff members stood frozen, realization dawning like a slow, painful sunrise. The power dynamic had flipped completely, but Marcus took no satisfaction in it. He asked for a quiet room for the night, nothing special, just a place for Lily to sleep. It was arranged immediately. Then he asked for a full report of the incident, including staff conduct, training records, and any prior complaints. His voice wasn't angry, it was weary, and that somehow made it heavier. The investigation moved quickly. By morning, it was clear that Claire's behavior wasn't an isolated incident. Complaints had been ignored, staff intimidated into silence, guests dismissed or blamed. Worse, the culture she fostered had allowed others to look away. The clerk admitted he'd been afraid to contradict her. Security said they'd been warned not to question management decisions. The slap wasn't just an act of anger, it was the symptom of a deeper rot. Marcus requested a meeting with the entire staff before he left. They gathered in a conference room, nervous and defensive, expecting punishment. Lily sat beside him, swinging her legs, blissfully unaware of the weight of the moment. Marcus stood and told them who he was, not with pride, but with context. He spoke about starting at the bottom, about nights sleeping in break rooms, about learning that hospitality wasn't about buildings or policies but about people. He told them he was sorry. Sorry that fear had replaced accountability. Sorry that kindness had become optional. He acknowledged that many of them were victims of the same system that had failed him the night before. Then he made the decision that would ripple far beyond that room. The management team, including Claire and several supervisors who had enabled her behavior, were terminated effective immediately. The rest of the staff would be retained, retrained, and supported under interim leadership. There were tears. There was shock. There was relief. Marcus emphasized that firing wasn't about revenge. It was about responsibility. He promised changes, not just in policy but in practice. Anonymous reporting, real training, a culture where no one, guest or employee, would ever feel powerless again. As Marcus checked out later that day, Lily tugged on his hand and asked if the hotel was still mad at him. He knelt and smiled softly, brushing her hair back. He told her that sometimes, when you stand up calmly and tell the truth, things get better even if they get scary first. She nodded solemnly, accepting this as only children can. The story spread quickly online, though Marcus never spoke to the press. Clips from security footage surfaced. Witnesses shared accounts. Some framed it as a dramatic downfall, others as justice served. Marcus focused instead on emails from staff thanking him for listening, for seeing them. He returned to his routine, to school lunches and bedtime stories, carrying the experience with him like a quiet reminder. In the weeks that followed, the hotel reopened under new leadership. Complaints dropped. Employee satisfaction rose. Marcus visited once, anonymously, watching the lobby hum with a different energy. A front desk clerk greeted him warmly, unaware of who he was, and that was enough. Life didn't become easier overnight. Single fatherhood still came with exhaustion and doubt. Grief still arrived uninvited, but Marcus carried himself with a renewed sense of purpose. He had been slapped in public, humiliated and underestimated, but he had responded not with fury, but with integrity. And in doing so, he had protected his child, held others accountable, and reminded a room full of strangers that respect is not optional. Sometimes strength isn't loud. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to stand still, to speak clearly, and to let the truth do the work.